Anyway, so you know, it's not an easy decision. You know, all the people of Inter want to know, and you know, all the people in England want to know what decision I'm going to make. But it's not something that you think about lightly. It takes a lot of time to think about. It's a very difficult situation for me. But you know, maybe I might stay, James. Then again, maybe I won't. Oh, I think he's had a late night. Anyway, I'll be telling you more about my decision later on. Over to you, Ken. Ken? Oh, Ken!
Oh, sorry, Paul. Look forward to listening to that later on. Coming up.
The best action from last weekend, and the league leaders are on the verge of yet another famous triumph. James has all the week's big stories. We've got highlights from a crucial night in Europe for Juventus as they played for a place in the Champions Cup final. We get all the latest news from Inter's new scoring sensation, England's Paul Ince. And look forward to tomorrow's biggest fixture when Ince and Inter go head-to-head with Juventus in a game known as the Derby of Italy.
Thank you, Ken. Right, I'll be back with Paul later on, but of course the first thing coming up this morning is what went down last weekend in Serie A. Now, by last Saturday, the title race in the division was down to just 2 teams. Milan were leading as ever with Juventus 6 points behind and just 5 games left to go in the season. Juve played their match from last weekend a day early to help with their European commitments midweek, and thus it was that on Saturday afternoon, Juve took the field at the Stadio delle Alpi against Sampdoria, knowing that only a victory could help their slim title hopes. Here's Luigi Vialli.
It took Sampdoria just 22 seconds to hit the front in Turin. Enrico Chiesa scored his 19th goal of the season in just 23 appearances. Juve, who were hoping to move to within 3 points of Milan, went in search of an equaliser, but Ravanelli couldn't find a way past Zenga. It was a different story at the other end. Sampdoria found it easy to get past Juve's wide-open defence. Clarence Seedorf should have done better. But the young Dutchman did start the move, which led to Sampdoria's second goal. Inevitably, Chiesa was also involved. Surprisingly, Peruzzi was beaten at his near post by fullback David Balleri. Chiesa also had a hand in the Genoa side's third. This time, Seedorf kept his composure to beat Peruzzi. Sampdoria celebrated their first away win over Juventus in 13 years as the champions virtually kissed goodbye to their hopes of retaining the title. Peruzzi saved his side from an even heavier defeat. Juve got it all wrong on the day as their 6-game winning run came to an abrupt end.
Well, that would appear to be that then for Juventus. Juve goodbye to the title indeed, as Il Messaggero writes on Sunday morning. Gazzetta, Juve, what humiliation. A presumptuous Juve side, they write, blown apart by Cyclone Chiesa. Meanwhile, what's old, wrinkly and keeps Sampdoria's sheets clean? Why, Walter Zenga, of course. The veteran goalkeeper has been back for 3 games now and has yet to concede a single goal. And on Saturday afternoon, once again, he proved decisive. Congratulations to the Spider-Man himself. Meanwhile, moving on now to Sunday's games, and Samp having beaten the champs, would Milan finish happily against Napoli? Let's find out with Luca Blizzard and Peter Brackley.
Baggio trotting over to take the corner kick. Napoli had to deal with the menace of George Weah. Desai's in there as well, and Maldini. Takalo has the task of policing Weah. And it's a free header from Panucci. Nobody picked him up. All eyes were on Desai, on Weah, on Maldini. And Panucci sneaked in to score on 13 minutes. Boskov on the line, looking very, very angry.
I can imagine. I mean, nobody whatsoever picked him up, and you could almost see it in slow motion going to happen. Nobody whatsoever moved anywhere near to stop him from getting that. And, I mean, a great header.
It's his 4th goal in Serie A. Really positive header then by Christian Panucci. 13 minutes gone, and Milan have the early lead. They've certainly got to be more ambitious, I think, in the second half, Napoli, if they are to extend Milan in any way.
They have indeed, and it looks as if at the moment it started exactly the way the first half finished.
Maldini. Vialli tracking back with him, but his challenge was easily dismissed. And almost an own goal then.
What a super save that was.
Policado's header, and it was a brilliant save by Tagliatella.
Super ball in there from Maldini, again on his right peg, and I mean, that is a fine save.
Here is Donadoni in support. Desai making his way into the middle. Still Donadoni. Donadoni shot off the post. Fierce drive then by Donadoni.
And that is just one of the things that at the moment Napoli are lacking, somebody that will suddenly do something and create. I mean, that was very unfortunate.
Franco Baresi commanding operations at the back for Milan as imperiously as ever. Here's Eranio. Good turn by Weah. Simone intelligently now bringing Donadoni into the play. Still Donadoni. Albertini. Just wide of goal then, but only just.
Again, lovely bit of build-up there for Milan, just keeping possession and then suddenly springing the trap, and there they were, edge of the box with a striker goal.
Now Milan's defence was split open then. It's a chance, it's over the bar. Oh,
what a guilt.
Well,
what an opportunity that was to have tied it up. It's not often you find Milan in the disarray they were there, and incredible that he couldn't put that away.
Hurrah for Milan, 9 points clear now with 4 games to go, and the Rossoneri tie things up with an appropriately ropey game. Never mind though, on Monday morning's papers, Gazzetta dello Sport, Milan, it's goal scudetto, they say, casting prepositions to the wind. Corriere della Sera, Milan booked for 15, their 15th title naturally, and Corriere dello Sport, Milan, yes you can, toast the title. Spirits naturally high among the Rossoneri then, with the possible exception of poor old Bobby Baggio, who's been bought off more often than a Colombian politician this season. His 19th substitution in all competitions coming on Sunday afternoon against Napoli, and that puts his place at Euro 96 very much at risk. Still, yin and yang being what they are, while Roberto's star wanes, that of rival Gianfranco Zola waxes once more. The scaled-down Sardinian now finally back in form, and in Sunday afternoon's other big game, he and Parma took on Lazio at the Stadio Olimpico, in a game which also saw Zdeněk Zeman coming face-to-face with the man who may yet replace him, Nevio Scala. Here's Gary Bloom.
Boksic. Slip back to Chamot. Chamot's only ever scored one Serie A goal, and he was desperately close to his second there. Not often you find Chamot pushing forward into these sort of positions. We'll see. Apolloni given away dangerously to Signori. And this is Fuzet, and Lazio have the lead. And that goal was gift-wrapped by Parma once they'd given possession away inside the last third of the field. But a terrific strike from Diego Fuzet. Bucci comprehensively beaten. Minotti. Zola. This is Mussi. And this is Sensini arriving, and a great save by Marcagiani. Well, Sensini was the only Parma player forward here, and he drew an excellent stop from Marcagiani. Signori. This is Boksic. Vinta. Fuzet. This is Casiraghi. And that's another outstanding goal for Lazio. Pierluigi Casiraghi has beaten his personal best in Serie A in terms of goals. Zola with the corner. Oh, and Vialli headed the ball from underneath his own crossbar. Good clearance by the Lazio defender. In fairness, there wasn't a Parma player too close to him, but that was a real moment of danger. Marcolin. Winter. And this is Boksic! Oh, goodness me! Boksic unable to add to the 3 goals he's scored this season. Vialli. Winter! Well, Lazio have had 2 great opportunities now to add to their 2-goal advantage. The first came from Boksic, and then Winter got forward, looking for that 3rd goal. Cannavaro. Oh, good attempt on goal and a good stop too by Marcagiani. He really has been underemployed in this game. Stoichkov with the corner. Stoichkov. Zola. Yes, 2-1. Parma are right back in it with 10 minutes left. Zola's 9th Serie A goal of the season. He scored for the first time in 4 months for Parma in midweek against Cremonese, and he scored again here. This was terrific control by Zola, and quite a shot. That's Vialli with the throw. Signori. And he's past 2 Parma players. Fuser breaks to his left. Casiraghis through the middle. And the ball seemed to get stuck under Casiraghi's studs then, as he headed for goal. Casiraghi seemed to wait an age before attempting a shot.
Two-1 then, Lazio win once again and indeed take over Parma's 5th place in the table on goal difference, and thus they're back among those UEFA positions. Lazio rediscovered greatness, Gazzetta calls it on Monday morning, striking a wistful note underneath. The better they get, they write, the more the regrets grow for what might have been. Hey, chin up, Gazzetta, because all is not lost for Lazio, and indeed there were some positive noises for their captain Beppe Signori on Sunday from Arrigo Sacchi, no less, the national team coach who was present at the Olimpico. Signori's going well, he says. If he continues like this, I'll be bringing him to England to the European Championships. Well, excellent news that. Meanwhile, anyway, after those 3 games, time for us to take our usual break, but stay with us because shortly we'll be having some extremely interesting results indeed, including Inter's amazing destruction of Padova. There'll be all the news and, of course, Juventus against Nantes in the semi-finals of the Champions Cup. All of that coming up shortly, so join us right after this break. Welcome back, everyone. Coming up shortly, we'll have highlights of Juventus in the Champions Cup semi-final. But first of all, of course, we look through the papers, and what a week it's been. More news than a litter of kittens with cleft palates. Anyway, on we go with the first story, and it's a big one. Winter has said yes to Inter. to the delight of amateur poets everywhere. That's Aaron Winter, of course, of Lazio. For 3 seasons, one of their finest players indeed, but now with his contract up and indeed with a knee injury from Sunday's game that may mean he's already played his last game for the Roman club, the 29-year-old Dutchman has announced he's moving north. This winter sale, however, will be no bargain for Inter, as his salary will cost them an estimated £1.75 million a season. Well, of course, there was a rival bid from Parma, but Winter, not surprisingly under those conditions, has decided to say yes to Moratti, the Inter president. Inter want to challenge Milan. He says, I like that. Well, Inter indeed have quite a squad building up. Torino's Jocelyn Anglamar and Nwankwo Kanu of Ajax are both on the way. So too, although this is still to be confirmed, is Ivan Zamorano of Real Madrid. We'll be hearing what Paul Ince has to say about all this and about his possible role in a future Inter later on. Right now, though, after that winter's tale, it's time for us to move on to the story which looks set to dominate this summer's transfer market as half of Italy gets ready to bid for Sampdoria's Enrico Chiesa. The 25-year-old Chiesa has become, over the last few months, the hottest property in Serie A, thanks to 19 goals in just 23 league games, and of course that extraordinary performance on Saturday against Juventus. Though of modest taste, Enrico has asked Sampdoria to double his current wages to an entirely reasonable £1 million a season. They've responded by putting him up for auction. Here's Chiesa, who will offer the most, they say, and with 7 clubs interested, the whole thing's become the Serie A equivalent of sumo, i.e. there are some ridiculously large figures being thrown around. Sampdoria want £10.5 million, that's their starting price for the player, with whom they have a contract until 1999. The closest to that so far is Parma, who have offered £7.5 million. However, not far behind them are Roma, Juventus and Milan. It's a level of interest which sounds extraordinary for a player who's hardly been exceptional before this season, but then again here in Italy they're already calling Enrico the next Paolo Rossi. Well, next up, news of Gianluca Vialli. Luca's contract with Juventus ends this summer, and for several months now a question mark has been hanging over the future of this 31-year-old player, captain of course of Juve and our player of last season. This week, David Murray, the owner of Rangers, gained major column inches in Britain, if not in Italy, by announcing that he'd tempted Luca with a move to Glasgow. It's 50% between us and Parma, he says. However, here in Italy, a different story is circulating, according to which Vialli has already decided to plump for Parma, and indeed that the latter club, after their recent disappointments with Fabio Capello, have already made Vialli sign an agreement. All of which is, naturally enough, yet to be confirmed by the player himself. In the meantime, though, what does look likely is that Vialli won't be staying at Juventus. They haven't offered him his requested 2-season deal, and in the meantime, as we've seen, they've been busy hunting around for replacements. This week, indeed, they signed Atalanta's strapping under-21 international Christian Vieri to a 4-year deal. All very interesting. Well, now to round up the latest developments on 3 or 4 other stories. First of all, the aforementioned Fabio Capello, coach of Milan, looks as though he may now be heading to Spain after all. 2 weeks ago, after turning down Parma, Capello looked likely to remain at Milan. Now those Spanish champions, Real Madrid, say they're certain to sign him, and the Italian press agree. Capello goes to Real, indeed, says a confident Corriere dello Sport. Well, Fabio will be making his decision public on Monday or Tuesday of next week, but don't let's forget he has surprised us once before. And so too, moving right along, has Fiorentina's owner, the cuddly Vittorio Cecchigori. The bumptious president of the Viola stunned Italy, of course, back in February by winning with a monumental bid the TV and radio rights to Italian football for the next 3 seasons. Now, though, he's had to give them back. The clubs could accept the fact that he didn't have an adequate TV structure for the deal or any radio stations. However, when it turned out that he didn't have any money either, well, that was that, and the rights have now returned to the Italian state broadcasters RAI in a deal that'll still see the level of TV revenues doubling here to £500 million over the next 3 years. Next, as you may have gathered, the players' strike threatened for this afternoon has now been called off. After halting a round of games back in March, Serie A's footballers have now got progress on the idea of a players' vote in the federation, and as regards transfer fees, the Italian government is set to end internal payments as of this summer. So today's league programme, and remember they're playing this afternoon because of tomorrow's general elections, will go ahead as planned. More on that later on. Right now, though, finally, more on Arrigo Sacchi, so to speak. Sacchi has, you'll be delighted to hear, finally signed now his contract extension with the Italian Federation, and he'll now remain with the Azzurri until December 1998. That's after the next World Cup, of course. His wages, though, will remain pretty much on the current levels of £1.3 million a season. He'll just have to manage somehow. Anyway, after that final piece of news, it's now time at last for some action as Gary Bloom brings us highlights from the second leg of the Champions Cup semi-final. It's Juventus against Nantes, of course, and remember, Juve 2-0 up after the first leg in Turin. Take it away, Gary.
Juve's opponents in Rome next month will be the holders Ajax, who came back from a disastrous first leg defeat to beat Panathinaikos in Athens and make it through to what now promises to be a classic European final. And that's it for part 2. After the break, we'll be rounding up the rest of last week's action and catching up with the man who played a major part in a remarkable match at the San Siro, England's Paul Ince. See you in a couple of minutes.
Hello, welcome back everyone to the show. We're working hard here as ever. As you can see, we're currently inside the tunnel, the very tunnel of the San Siro Stadium in Milan, where of course Paul Ince and his Inter teammates had such a wonderful afternoon on Sunday. Inter against Padova was the match. Paul played a blinder, and so many of your teammates did too. I know you want to tell us all about it. You'll get your chance in a minute. First though, viewers, let's see highlights with Luigi Vialli.
Padova didn't know what hit them at the San Siro. Branca scored the first of Inter's 8 goals just 4 minutes in. Zanetti created the opening. If you'd wondered why Padova have the worst defensive record in Serie A, look no further than Inter's second goal. Even when they're not under pressure, Padova seemed determined to give goals away. Carboni accepted Quickie's charity. However, Inter's defending wasn't that much better. Amoruso pulled a goal back for Serie A's bottom club following Festa's error. But Marco Branca soon restored Inter's 2-goal advantage with another well-taken header. Now stand by for an outstanding effort from Paul Ince. His first goal at the San Siro left the England international beaming from ear to ear. That's now 2 goals in a week for Ince, who, despite press reports, is clearly enjoying himself. Inter's 5th goal was just as spectacular. Marco Branca claimed his hat-trick 2 minutes after the interval to take his tally to 18 for the season. Amoruso took his tally to 13. His goal made it 5-2. Even Gianluca Festa managed to get his name on the score sheet. The Inter defender scored for only the 4th time in his Serie A career. Padova had the chance to reduce the deficit to 3 goals from the penalty spot. However, Pagliuca denied Amoruso his hat-trick and it remained 6-2. Dal Bianco had replaced Bonaiuti at half-time, but nothing really changed. Ganz scored Inter's 7th 11 minutes after coming on for Carbone and was understandably overjoyed. Ganz still had enough energy to score the final goal of the afternoon. Inter hadn't scored 8 goals in a Serie A game for 38 years, but that was little consolation to Padova's coach Mauro Sandriani.
Thank you, Luigi. Well done, Paul. What a great result it was, even if it was against Padova.
Yes, it was. Didn't expect to beat them 8-2, even though Fiorentina beat them 6-4 the week before. But once we got the first goal and then we scored the second goal quite early, there's always a chance of it being a high score.
Right.
And then, that's my goal.
Yeah.
To be honest, you know, I'm not a liar, but I've been working on that, you know, all week.
What, you were practicing that
Other
training?
kicks, no.
So what happened? I mean, you saw the ball coming in.
Front of lane took a corner.
Yep.
And I remember Festa running across the goalkeeper.
Right.
And I think it took a deflection, one of them, I'm not sure who it was.
Right.
And the ball just kind of stood up in the air, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I just thought, well, that was the only thing to do. Usually do those things out of instinct. And
Did you have time to think about it, or was it just the
No, I had time to think about it because the ball was like up there in the air, so I knew what I was going to do. But then I saw the defender kind of put his head there.
Right.
And I thought, oh, and once I got contact, I was quite near the area, I think.
Right, we're actually in the very area where this happened, right? So you were where?
You know,
somewhere here?
I think I was about here, if I could. No, maybe a bit over here, James.
Right, okay, well, let's not be too precise.
Yeah, well, I want to be precise because it was a great goal, so I want to be precise,
right.
you know. And
so the ball comes in from over here, yeah?
The ball coming from over there.
Right.
And Festa headed it there, and I was here.
Right.
And I saw the defender coming in, so I've tried to get the overhead kick here.
Right.
And I thought I got too much of a contact on it. Sometimes when you do overhead kicks, you know, as you know.
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
You can get too much of a good contact.
Right.
And I thought I got a good contact and too much. Because I was quite close, I thought I'd let over the bar.
Right.
And then I turned around and it's sort of ball in the back of the net. And then,
but actually, I mean, what I'd really like to see you reenact more than anything is your victory celebration. So could you take us through that? What is it? Is that it? I haven't quite.
It was a bit like, you know, it was like a bit like that, you know.
Is that something you practiced during the week as well, or not?
No, it was just something I did out of instinct, you know. I'm not used to scoring goals, James.
Because you're saying you don't usually score very much, but of course, just 7 days before, you'd scored again against Cremonese.
Yeah. That's funny enough. When I used to play at Manchester, I used to never used to score for 3 or 4 months, but then come like December, January, I used to get one, and then I'd go on like a little run for 3 games,
right,
and then go missing again for another couple of months, and then score right at the end of the season.
Right.
Here I left it a little bit too late, James. You know.
Right.
When I scored 2, obviously I'd like to score a lot more because you know we all like scoring, and it's nice to.
Even if it's not really your role in the team?
No, it's not really my, I'm not really, I wouldn't say I'm not good at it, but it's not something I really get a chance to do because I spend a lot of time defensively, you know, stopping the other team from scoring. But one day I just like to get a tap in, James, just from 2 yards, you know? So I can say I got the striker's instinct or something.
Excellent. All right, the other feature, of course, of the Cremonese game was this rather unpleasant business of some racist chants from the crowd, which the Italian press gave a lot of space to, and I think it turned up quite a lot in the English papers too. But the Cremona actually, the mayor actually apologised to you in a letter and invited you to the council meeting. Have you been to that, or what?
No, to be honest, James, he did write to me, and it was a really lovely letter at that. But it still doesn't take away the fact that it happened.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing which upset me most was the fact that after I clapped the situation, which was not a good situation, after I applauded it,
yeah,
you know, the referee then come over and booked me.
Yeah. Well, you saw that the opinion in Italy was very much with you on that. I mean, nobody could understand why you got a yellow card for, you know, such an example of self-control, really. Yeah,
but then again, you can say, why did I get a red card for doing nothing against Udinese? And you know, it's happened twice now, you know what I mean? But no, I think it's important that we do stop this racism stuff because I believe from papers or from things that we're going to have more black players in Italy next year.
Yeah.
And the last thing we want is for them to turn their backs and say, I'm not coming to play in Italy because of racism.
Absolutely.
Because I don't believe that's the situation. I believe the people in Italy are fantastic people. And they're lovely people. I just believe it's a minority, you know, who are like that.
Of course, the Sunday after you got your last expulsion, your last sending off, You spent in with the fans of the Curva Nord, in with the Inter Ultras. What was that like?
One of the leaders came down from the Curva and met me, took me up there, and as I walked in, there was a big message like "Isle," just so like to say the King has arrived or something like that. You know, something ridiculous. And the thing is, all the people on the other side of the stadium didn't realise what was going on.
Right.
Because that's when everyone was going mad.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And then I just went to the front and just waved to everybody. And
did you watch the whole game up there?
I watched the first half. Claire watched the second half.
Right.
Just Thomas was running about, causing pandemonium in the other stand, so I had to come down for the second half.
Right.
I wanted to.
This does lead us rather naturally on to the next question, which is? When are you flying back to England for the game? I mean, you're looking forward to the game, are you? I mean, the England game?
Yeah, sure, Joe. Sure. No, it's going to be a hard game. I believe this is going to be our hardest test yet against Croatia. They're a very good side.
Very.
Poshnetsky, Boban,
They beat Italy in the qualifying group. Finished ahead of Italy in the qualifying group.
Sure that means anything, really.
No?
No, I'm trying to joke. No, they are a very strong team, and obviously they're going to be very difficult. But I just believe when you play teams like that in friendlies, they never show what they're going to show the month after. Of course, when they play in the European Championships.
Absolutely.
When you haven't got a competitive match, so it's going to be really hard for us to see what they really like, because they're not going to show that much.
Right.
But as for us, we've got to show that much, because every player's playing for a place to be in that European Championship. So when we go on the field, we've got to play like it's a European Championship game, because they haven't. But I'm looking forward to it, and if selected, then hopefully I'll do my best.
Well, listen, the other big question is, of course, that old favourite.
No, it's not another big question. That old favourite, one of yours.
Now, there has been talk, indeed, that you might be making a decision, because when we last met, which was about a month ago, you told us you were actually going to decide by the next Friday, and stupidly, I believed you.
Well, after the Croatia game,
I'll
fly back to Milan on Thursday,
Yeah.
speak to Mr. Marti on Friday.
Right, and tell him you're staying.
And tell him the decision on Friday.
Right. You can't give us faithful Gazzetta viewers a little anticipation, can you? I mean, that's the Italian word, actually. You can't, a little scoop. You're likely to stay, is that correct? Yeah. I think so. You know, we've got a great thing here. You know what I mean? The team's doing really well. Right.
And there's no reason why, you know, we can't push AC Milan next year for the Championship, as well as Fiorentina and Juventus.
Right.
We're going to buy some new players, and the fans love me. You know, I like it here. You know, but it's just the two things that happened at Cremonese and Udinese that get you thinking. You know.
Yeah.
But no, it'd be silly for me to pack my bags, James, when things are going great, and go back to England.
Well, that's excellent news. Right, this afternoon, anyway, you've got a big game moving into the immediate present against Juventus, who have just gone through, of course, to the Champions Cup final. We're going to be talking more about that in a second, as well as looking through the tables and all that. But first of all, let's round up the remaining 5 games from last weekend with Luigi Vialli.
Fiorentina's last Serie A win in Udine came 14 years ago, and once again the Viola limited their fireworks to the terraces. Toldo's aberration resulted in the only goal of the game, which arrived after 7 minutes. Paolo Poggi was the scorer. Toldo's mistake was in keeping with his club's recent form. They've now conceded 9 goals in 3 matches. Udinese had lost 4 in a row before this fixture, so it goes without saying how precious the 3 points were. The home side dominated the first half. Oliver Bierhoff will have been disappointed he failed to add to the 14 goals he's already scored in Serie A this season. Gabriel Battistuta scored twice in Fiorentina's 3-0 victory over Udinese back in December. Once again, he provided the biggest threat to Zaccheroni's side, but ended this match without a goal to his name. The Argentine has failed to score in 6 of his last 7 Serie A games, but he might have had a hat-trick in this one. Fiorentina suffered their 2nd consecutive away defeat. At the start of play, just 1 point separated these 2 teams in the bottom half of the table. A win for either side would practically ensure Serie A survival. Atalanta dominated this fixture. Sgro had already gone close to scoring before Christian Vieri claimed the opening goal after 17 minutes. Cagliari thought they'd equalised, but Bisoli's header was disallowed. Atalanta doubled their advantage shortly before half-time. A four-man move was finished off in style by Morfeo, who struck his 10th Serie A goal of the season. Cagliari were quite literally handed the opportunity to get back into this match by Montero. Ferron used his hands to much better effect, saving Oliveira's penalty, then improvising on the rebound. The home side secured maximum points late on. Once again, Vieri showed why he's one of Italy's most sought-after players. The match ended 3-0 thanks to Ferron in Atalanta's goal. Cagliari have now gone 6 games without a win. It certainly rained goals when these sides met in Cremona back in December. Bari were eager to avenge that 7-1 defeat, and the conditions nearly helped them early on. Kenneth Anderson proved a real handful. Cremonese were fortunate to escape here. Both teams were on equal points in the relegation zone. Cremonese went into the interval 1 up. Perovic scored his 5th goal in Serie A. Bari came back to win from a goal down in midweek away to Atalanta. That fighting spirit could see them playing top-flight football again next season. Parente almost drew Bari level before Igor Protti did after 56 minutes. Protti's never-say-die approach was illustrated again 10 minutes later when he scored the goal which put Bari ahead. If Bari do stay up, they'll owe a huge debt to their captain. He's now scored 22 Serie A goals this season. It was a shame Salah didn't copy his skipper's example. The defender was sent off for retaliation. In stoppage time, Tentoni went looking for a penalty, but instead the referee decided to award the Cremonese striker a caution for diving. It was Tentoni's 2nd of the game, so he was red-carded as Cremonese went down to their 3rd successive defeat. Meanwhile, Igor Protti was rightly given a hero's send-off. Crowd trouble tarnished this relegation fixture, apparently fueled by the presence of some 200 Juventus fans. The most significant incident from a footballing point of view came in the very first minute. Giovanni's 8th goal of the season ultimately proved to be the winner. Torino didn't deserve to lose this game. Already without 8 first-team players, they found luck had completely deserted them. Rizzitelli was denied by Taibbi. Piacenza are lying just 1 place above the relegation zone, and they knew that a win for Torino would seriously damage their survival ambitions. Failing to add to their slender lead made life even more uncomfortable. Caccia and Moretti both spurned opportunities to extend Piacenza's advantage. Torino's last chance to avoid their 4th straight defeat disappeared after Rizzitelli struck the crossbar. They're heading for Serie B for only the 3rd time in their history. The home fans are already preparing for a season in European competition. All being well, Vicenza could be heading for a UEFA Cup place, so a victory against Roma was vital. Roberto Murgita could have given them an early lead. Like their opponents, Roma have also enjoyed a positive end to the season. They were unbeaten in 7 games going into this fixture, having won their last 4. Jonas Stern and Enrico Annoni both came close to putting Roma ahead. It's not often you see Annoni trying the spectacular. It's not often you see Roma gifting the opposition goals either, but that's exactly what they did shortly before the half-hour mark. Otero was able to claim his 12th Serie A goal. On the stroke of half-time, Vicenza suffered a double blow. Grossi gave away a penalty and was also sent off for his challenge on Fonseca, who levelled the score. The opening period ended with yet another dismissal. Bjorklund's foul on Fonseca went unpunished, but the Uruguayan foolishly took his protest too far. He was cautioned twice in a matter of seconds. Vicenza were the stronger side after the break. Both Rossi and Maini might have put the home team back in front. Their task was made that much easier after Roma had another player sent off. Del Vecchio received his 2nd yellow card and left his team down to 9 men. The winning goal arrived just 9 minutes from full time. Murgita headed the ball into an unguarded net after Cervone had saved Lombardini's effort. Roma still had an opportunity to claim something from this game. Di Biagio wasted it. Vicenza enjoyed their third successive victory.
That win over Roma kept Vicenza's European dream alive. Although they're down in 9th place, the little northeastern club are just 3 points behind Inter, who are 4th. So the European battle is getting very interesting. Elsewhere, Fiorentina and Juventus seem assured of European football next season, while Milan's successes at Cagliari and Napoli last week seem to have assured them of another early title celebration. At the other end of the table, things look grim for the bottom 3, while the final relegation place now looks like being a straight fight between Bari and Piacenza. And if the southern club are to survive, they still have plenty of work to do. One man who's been doing more than his fair share in Bari's relegation battle is star striker Igor Proti. Another double strike last Sunday took Proti's Serie A total for the season to 22 goals, which, given Bari's problems, is quite a remarkable achievement. Another player in unstoppable form at the moment is Samp's Enrico Chiesa, who with 19 goals in 23 league appearances is now up to 3rd in the scoring charts. One other mover last weekend was Inter's Marco Branca, who scored a hat-trick and joined Gabriel Batistuta on 18 goals. Because of tomorrow's Italian general election, all the Week 31 fixtures have been brought forward to this afternoon. So in a few hours' time, Serie A could have new champions. Today, Milan travel to Turin, and victory will almost certainly secure the Rossoneri's 4th title in 5 years. However, their opponents, Torino, are equally desperate for points. If they lose, the season's surprise strugglers will almost certainly be relegated. Padova are in even worse trouble. Anything less than victory over Udinese and they will go down. Elsewhere, Cremonese face a vitally important game against another struggler, Piacenza, while Bari face the toughest task of all, away to Parma. Once again, a lot will depend on Igor Proti. If Bari's star striker can continue his remarkable run of form, the relegation-threatened southern side could pull off their 3rd straight win. Meanwhile, in Genoa, 2 European contenders go head-to-head. And after 4 straight wins, a resurgent Sampdoria will be confident of getting the better of Lazio, a team with a notoriously poor away record. And the match of the day is another big European battle, featuring Internazionale, Juventus, and of course, England's only Serie A player. With the background on that game, here's Paul and James.
Here we are back in Paul Ince's office, and Paul, the question is, how do you fancy your chances against Juve?
Very strong. They've had a hard game Wednesday night against Nantes and played very well.
You saw the game?
I saw the game, but we believe on our own pitch in front of 60,000-70,000 fans that we will win. We need to win. We know the next places for the Europe are getting very tight now.
Right.
There's Roma, there's Lazio. And
there's 6 teams indeed within 3 points of each other.
Yeah, Vincenzo
Yeah.
now. So we need.
Fiorentina, Sampdoria.
No, of course, yeah. So we need to win against Juventus. You know, obviously, and I believe come this afternoon we will.
Right. It would be a disaster for Inter really if they don't get into Europe.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, that if we don't, then people are going to forget all the good work that's gone into the last five months before, when we've come from absolutely nowhere, from looking like one of the worst teams in the league, to like being one of the teams who, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 7 wins out of 8.
7 wins out of 8, and I think if we don't qualify for Europe, you know, people just look at us and think, well, we haven't qualified for Europe. Doesn't matter how good we've done, we haven't qualified for Europe.
Right.
And you know, people wasn't talking about Sampdoria all season. All of a sudden, people saying, "Oh, Sampdoria, what a great team! What they beat Milan, they beat Juventus 3-0 away. Now they can make Europe." You know, I was talking about them like 5 months ago. You know, so it's important for us to stake this claim. You know, that we can get into Europe. We've got to buy a new place next year and attract them with the European football. And by winning on this afternoon, that's one step closer to doing that, James.
Paul, all right, well, that's going to be our game. Not live, sadly, but it will be on Sunday evening. Highlights of that match, Juventus against Inter, or rather Inter against Juventus, right here on Channel 4. So there you have it, late on Sunday night, a chance to go to bed with Paul Ince, in a very real sense of the word. Hoping you can join us for that. I'll be back, of course, next Saturday morning with Gazzetta, with the highlights of that game and all the others from the weekend's action right here in Serie A. For now, though, from both of us and indeed all the rest of the Gazzetta team, it's arrivederci.
Arrivederci tutti. Ciao. Very funny today. Very funny.